Hey everybody, how's it going? So, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And that's what I'm reminded of when I see this piece of news today that says Governor Hochul is blasting district attorneys who undercharge perps after a New York City sucker punch. So over here, you have a man that is just minding his business on the street, and then you have another man who is seemingly a scumbag that just goes up to that guy. And again, we're not talking about a fight. He just punches him as hard as he can in the back of the head, and that's that. Again, it's not like they were like, they're boxing or one person pushed and then the other person pushed back. He walked up to the dude and punched him in the back of the head without any sort of provocation or notice, which again makes him a giant fucking pussy. But this is very similar to something called the game Knockout. We used to have this game called Knockout in 2013 in my neighborhood, where the idea of the game is you walk up to somebody and you sneak up on them, somebody that you've never met, never had an altercation with, never had a problem with, and you hit them in the back of the head as hard as humanly possible to try and knock them out, and then you run away like a bitch. And when this used to happen 9 years ago, my local city councilwoman was simping for the criminals by saying, "While I personally regard this level of tenacity, I also recognize that for others, the accomplishments of the Jewish community triggers feelings of resentment, and a sense that Jewish success is also not their success. I believe it is critical for all our communities to gain a greater understanding." No, it's important for you to not punch people in the back of the head, you stupid motherfucker. And this is the kind of crap that just makes the city worse and worse and worse with time. I'm old enough to remember the knockout game. They weren't only punching Jewish people. And now, granted, she wound up apologizing for this because she got enough blowback for it, as she should. And she wound up doing her apology tour.
I'm deeply sorry. Sorry.
And, as is usual in New York City politics, after she did her apology tour after simping for criminals, 9 years later, she's the commissioner at New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. Whatever the fuck that is. But let's just continue through the article. Governor Hochul again took credit for putting a career criminal who sucker punched a random man in the Bronx behind bars, pointing her finger at local district attorneys instead of New York's disastrous bail reform laws. Now, it could be argued that both of them need a bit of reform there, but, it is what it is. I need the district attorneys and the judges to do their jobs, and when they don't, as the governor, I'll be there, she said during remarks at Hampton Synagogue in West Hampton Beach. The slapdown came the week that, I can't say that name properly, I'm sorry. A violent thug and sex offender sucker punched Jesus Cortez in a random attack in the Bronx, leaving him fighting for his life. And again, this is just a massively pussy thing to do. I'm not saying that it is okay to use physical violence on people. I'm just saying, if you're out with your friends and one of your friends says something out of turn and you say, let's take it outside, and you get into a bar fight, that is materially different than walking up to somebody you don't know and without giving them any notice, hitting them as hard as you can in the back of the head. That takes a special type of deranged piece of shit that should be locked away for the rest of their fucking life, in my opinion. Again, I'm not saying it's right to beat somebody up or get into a fight. But there's a difference between a bar fight that got out of hand between friends when they were drunk and somebody who walks up to somebody they don't know and hits them as hard as humanly possible in the back of the fucking head. The former, it's one thing if you want to say, well, okay, fine, he regret what he did and they made up afterwards and nobody was really hurt as a result of it, so fine, you get off with a misdemeanor. That is materially different from this situation with the sucker punch. This type of person deserves to be locked away for the rest of their fucking life and throw away the key. We're better off without people like this in our society. No one will miss you. Now, it says here, New York Police Department charges of attempted murder were later downgraded by Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark, and he was released without bail. And this is something that we went over in some other videos in this channel. Now, to be clear, I understand this video is an hour long and most people are not going to want to watch it. Do keep in mind that I have very, very detailed timestamps so that if you don't want to watch through this entire thing, you can just skip through to the timestamp that makes sense to you. The absolute TLDR is that, again, this happened in the Bronx, but the guy who got elected as District Attorney of Manhattan has went through and made many things that used to be a felony a misdemeanor. Again, felony, burglary, many different things that were felonies can now be classified and prosecuted as misdemeanors under that DA. And even though this happened in the Bronx, not Manhattan, it's one of those things where Manhattan sneezes and the Bronx now has a cough kind of thing, where it's just kind of spreading to everywhere. And this is not how this should work. If you hit somebody in the back of the fucking head, no provocation, you should not have the charge downgraded from attempted murder. If you hit somebody as hard as you can in the back of the head, that can kill them. And you're not punching them in the arm, you're not, slapping them on the wrist, you're hitting them as hard as they can on the back of the skull. Hochul, who was facing off against Republican challenger and Long Island Congressman Lee Zeldin in the governor's race, moved to have Bowie jailed after a public outcry, a decision she touted during her Shabbat service remarks. Just yesterday, you may have seen there was one person who let judges out. They undercharged him. When you knock someone down and they're struggling for their life, that's not a misdemeanor, that's attempted murder, and you should not be walking the streets of New York. She said, it's about fucking time, but it's a little bit too late. I don't know what to tell you. It's sick and tiring to watch the way this city continues to simp for criminals. We went over this in a recent video that I did on a New York City bodega owner that was arrested and then tossed in jail they asked for $500,000 in bail. They went for $250,000 in bail. And after a public outcry, decreased it to only $50,000 in bail before they finally dropped the charges. In this city, it is okay for you to walk up to somebody, hit them in the back of the head as hard as you can, and just get out with a misdemeanor. And I want to be clear here. I am not blaming New York City for the fact that crime exists. There are many people that will say, well, my area doesn't have crime. And it's like, yeah, you live on a landmass the size of New York City. We have 8.5 million people. You have 3,000. The town I live in New Hampshire has something like 500 people. Of course, there's going to be less crime there than there is in a place with 8.5 million in a space that's this small. That is not something that I blame New York City for. There's always going to be crime as long as there is human nature. What I do blame New York City for is for adopting a philosophy and an ideology that consistently simps for the criminal, and instead of caring about the victim and how they are affected by crime, rather, we take the criminal, we portray them as the victim and use that as an excuse to let them off the hook with always some sort of excuse about the environment, this, that, or the other. And you have to be able to understand why they did what they did so that you can then lower it to a misdemeanor, let them out to do it again, and just let this cycle continue repeating itself. If you smash somebody in the back of the head who has not provoked you in any way, shape, or form, you should be locked up and the key should be thrown away. Keep it nice and simple. Luckily, it's not something I'm going to have to care about anymore, because by this day next week, everything that is in this particular apartment is going to be in a house in Texas. Got a new job, got a new house, invited every single one of the employees that wants to come with a year of free rent, bonuses, everything else, if they're open to following me there. And I'm pretty excited. Business moves in January. I move pretty much starting now. I flew back here so that I could start packing up all my shit. I have bags of stuff from my New Hampshire apartment. I have bags of stuff from here. And I'm going to be boxing it all up and getting the fuck out of here. I don't want to be involved with any of this shit anymore. I'm tired of it. Again, like this exact same type of shit was happening, as I said, 10 years ago. And the people that made stupid comments back then, they keep their jobs. And the same shit winds up happening again 9 years later. It's not going to end until enough people say, you know what? Enough is enough. Fuck you. And I'm humbled, honored, and excited to be giving that particular middle finger. I'm actually pretty excited with the work that I'm doing at this new company in Texas. So far, over the past 2 weeks, we've managed to get grants out in the amount of about $440,000 to several different open source projects. We got Graphene OS, we got Calyx OS, we have the creator of Freenet, Ian Clark, who's working on a new decentralized system for building apps on. It's really kind of cool stuff, and we're going to be looking for more and more into the future, and I'm going to be having those people on the channel for an interview. It has been my pleasure to be a part of trying to fund hardware and software that gives freedom and control back to the end user of their product where it belongs and where it was in the golden era of computing and where I think it should be into the future of computing. And, I'm kind of happy to be taking this blue chair with me. This thing is my muse. I love this blue chair. Like, without this blue chair, it's not been the same doing videos. I had a normal chair in New Hampshire, and I don't have a chair in my house in Texas because I literally have nothing there besides an air mattress and a cable modem. But I'm very excited to be bringing my entire setup there. And I'm personally happy to be leaving all this shit behind very, very soon. My business is going to be out of here around January to February of 2023. And I will be out of here next week. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I look forward to the next chapter of my life and sharing that with you on this YouTube channel as I have for the past 10 years. Wow. Actually, I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary from the time that I posted my first video. Time flies when you're losing your hair. Anyway, see you all in the next video.